So, welcome to the third session in Everyday Cryptography. Our third speaker is Gustav, a local, who is going to talk about electronic communication. Welcome. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm Gustav. I will present today Fripost, the Democratic Email Association. The title is Syndicated Email Service Against Established Influence Patterns of Electronic Communication. My background is in physics, and I work professionally as a statistician. So what I do here has nothing to do professionally. But still I have been involved in and engaged in societal aspects of technology for quite a few years, and involved in the local community of the local free software community, and also Fripost member since the beginning, and that's why I'm here. Fripost is apart from being presented, and right now we also have a table downstairs, and there will be also a session with cryptography, or how workshop on cryptography in key signing that is partly hosted by Fripost tomorrow. So there are a lot of opportunities to come and talk to us if you have more questions than what we can raise today. Okay. Consumer data is an asset that you can sell. It's totally ethical because our customers would do the same thing to us if they could. Sounds fair. In phase 1, we'll dehumanize the enemy by calling them data. That is the starting point of this presentation. I use so Fripost have been presented before at FSCONS 2010. I will refer a lot to what we did at that time. This strip we used at that time, and you who have seen me before will recognize quite a few of the pictures and quite a few of the things that I say. But I also see many faces that have not seen me talking before, so bear with me those that have. Okay. We prepared this slide, or a similar slide, for a workshop in April. We had it in April. That is about companies and services that comes with services that we maybe did not ask for. Espionage, semantic analysis, and advertisement. And the starting point of that workshop, or the goal with that workshop, was to present alternatives for those that wanted to increase privacy and freedom. And these are the bad guys, the bad side. I will not present the good side, because we have also Fripost on the good side. But yeah, many feel uncomfortable using services like this. I simply assume that all of you could tell, that most of you could tell all of the logos and what they stand for. So, is there anyone that sees something on the slide that they would not be able to name? I don't see a single hand. Okay, there are. Yes. Okay, so we have two people that, or a couple of. Okay, so there's still some things that are hard to know what it is. We have some Swedish particular items around here and so on. But like, these guys are very good on marketing. They know what they're doing. So we can expect everyone to know what this is about. In 2010, I started to lay out the structure of Fripost together with Stefan Kangas in a context. That was in a context where the free software community was totally focused on fingered threats from the state or state institutions. So things has happened since, is that lastly, the Ukrainian crisis and the threat from the Putin expansionist has occurred. The ISIS large-scale activities and breakout of civil war in Syria. We have the announcement of the Brazil-African connection happening. 2010, that was before the Snowden leaks. That was before the disclosure of in Sweden about the scandal in Saudi Arabia and the weaponry agreement. And 2010 was also before the Arabian Spring and the Facebook revolution. So in 5 years, a lot of things has happened. Companies like Google were not at all extensively questioned. People did not react on these log types either, although I think most of them did exist at the time. And Google was in general held high for their technically advanced solution and the way they made technology available for everyone. So, in February 2010, Eben Muglian held a talk at the Internet community, Internet Society in New York. The talk was called Freedom in the Cloud. That had quite a bit of impact and kicked off a few projects. So, I will in this talk a bit. Mostly, I will spend time talking about the background to why we created Fripost or started Fripost, and why we continue to run the project still. And this is part of the background. Okay, so in his speech, he took offensive against the nonchalance in which internet services are used, and he reacted against the centralization tendency of internet. And as I said, like several initiatives were started after this speech, including GNU Social and Diaspora. Fripost was also one of the initiatives that was started after the Eben Muglian speech. The next thing is an article by Richard Stallman in Boston Review that introduced software as a service concept to the community. This was 1 month later. We use the definition of software as a service to defend and describe what we are doing in Fripost. So, okay, yeah, we have also, that's the guy, for those of you who didn't know. Okay, so software as a service, users performing computer work on servers controlled by others, non-free in a double sense. So, was it Hans that talked about how Free Software Foundation considered cloud computing or doing computer work on somebody else's computer? This is maybe not software as a service as so like general VP SS is not computer doing computer work in the sense that we're doing here, but software as a service is not free in a double sense. It denies the software is not free, and the computer is not free either. That is what I mean. What we see is also, okay, so 5 years ago, it was quite common to have software licensed on demand in the business-to-business software, and it started to grow in, for example, computer games. But nowadays, it's hard to even start a commercial operating system without being connected to the internet. So software as a service, as a problem, is growing. But taking the software as a service one step further and start talking about the problems with the logotypes that we saw before, and like I'm talking to friends here. I assume most of you know about about like infringements and things that bad things that happen on internet, and but there are still, I think there's still a use for some order in this, and this is categorization that we came up with regarding infringements on internet in April for this workshop that we had. So we have integrity and privacy, exposure to unwanted content, infringements regarding user freedom and denial of influence. So I will say a few words about each of these items. Integrity, privacy, and surveillance. Okay, this selfie was taken in a time where before selfies were invented. It's obviously not a digital camera image, but something else. We see two girls on the way to vacation, most likely, and I would just so much look forward to, or I would just so much like to see the faces of these girls when they go to the photocopy shop and get see who's actually the main character in the picture, right? It's all the focus. So maybe it's a bit unsharp on this prediction as well, but the focus is on this guy. I find this quite funny actually. So I expect some laughs. Thanks. So with a large clientele comes a lot of power, and we usually single out Google as a company because how efficient they are in using privacy invading schemes integrated between all the services. So things that they can do is give you advertisement or sell information to third parties. And let's see, I think so. I have a list here of services that Google provides to customers that helps them spy on you. I will not go through that, but if that will probably suit another context, since so many of you would be already know about these services. No, not yet. So the next item is content exposure, and this is advertisement and adopted search responses, for example. The Google search bubble we all know about, and feeds and filters on Facebook keeps our mind totally bloated with the content they have chosen and that we did not ask for. I think it was Hans that said before that we're not the customer but the commodity, and for Facebook it's quite a worthy commodity regarding the value of that company. Free computer labor is regarding computer work, doing computer work. We know the full freedom of free software, the user freedom of free software. You are allowed to run, study and modify, share and share the modified versions as you wish as a user of free software. We took these items as a starting point to define free computer labor. To perform free computer labor, we claim that, or we demand that the work should be performed exclusively with free software. The work is performed with computer hardware that is entirely at one's possession and control. The information worked with is information that one possesses, and the outcome of computer work is also totally in our possession and control. So the last item is the centralization tendency. that Evan Muglin brought up. So we see development is that there's a transition between highly distributed networks, peer-to-peer, free and open web of self-determined parts, to increasingly privatized web in hierarchical network of server clouds. It is this development is saddening for us that take user freedom and influence equality seriously. So, what can we do about it? Organization for a change. We can bring the computer work in our own back into our own control. This slide we prepared like for the one presentation that me and Stefan had at FSCONS 10 years ago, where we launched the idea of Fripost for the first time. Stefan, so we sat down, Stefan and I, thinking about like what we could do. He had service of his own. He published a magazine on internet and hosted, which is now a printed magazine, and he hosted his own email, and they were emailing. Some people know how to do it, but most of the time you end up, anyways, even if you know, you end up doing this with flaky hardware, and the question of the general doability is valid. Stefan is talented and different things to do. He knows how to put the service together, but still it demands quite a bit to run it reliable, have good hardware, and having access to good internet connection, and so on and so forth. Not talking about things like security threats and spam and viruses and intruding attempts and so on and so forth. It can be a hassle. So we decided to organize and start Fripost. We started with a small part of computing work and electronic communication. Small and easy, and that is email. And it's small, easy, it's good because it's a good starting point, since email is also very crucial for our everyday life. The benefits from organization, of course, is risk spreading, cost sharing, and exceeded reliability. Today it does not look. So our network today looks something along these lines, but not exactly. Basically, what we have done since 2010 is created a community, or created a network for sending emails and doing a lot of other things. But from a technical point of view, Fripost is quite advanced. But it's not only about Fripost is not only a technical organization. Other things that are important is transparency. So the important part of Fripost is not the technical solution, but the way we organize. So Fripost is a democratic organization and has democratic principles and other principles. And we have bylaws and declaration of principles that serves as fundamental funding document, and transparency from the officials, and a high level of trust and officials, of course, important in the association. So things that we promise, the Fripost as an organization as a whole promise our members, and at the moment we are roughly 100 members, many of which are in this room, and the users are twice as many. So we promise to receive email in a reliable manner, provide for administrative transparency, and protect members and integrity. We do not read or analyze emails, not manually, not automatically. We do not gather statistics or analyze members' traffic, and we do not hand out information to third parties. Those are some things that are declared in the Declaration of Principles. Yes, it's not only technology. This is how it, and it's not. This is how Fripost looks like concretely. So this is we meet and have fika and write meeting notes and discuss vividly about important topics. And we print stickers. Those are things that you can come to the booth and get, and you should come and get these things and spread them, spread the word of what we do. So we have, I usually say that Fripost stand on 3 pillars. Technology is important, but we also, so for, we have produced email or sent emails to each other successfully for 5 years. And the way we have improved the platform is by reducing dependency on consumer hardware, and we have provided integrated email lists for members to use and so on and so forth. But also, adult education is, we organize parties and activity days. We will discuss communication and cryptography workshops, things like that. We try to have social influence. We engage in campaigns for having local influence, and there are some examples of these campaigns as well. Google in School is one of the latest things that we engage with. That is the problem where, to the extent which Google is introduced in the public sector as administrative tools and for educational materials. The 4th pillar, which is not a pillar, it's not an activity, but a core value, is sustainability. Sustainability, with that I mean that it's no point in doing things if you don't intend to continue doing it. Not when you have hundreds of people depending on it. And that is also why Fripost have been. So the core value of sustainability, I believe, is what keeps us running and has been keeping Fripost going so far. Okay. Looking forward, there are still things to do, technical and non-technical. There are many ideas on how to improve the solution suite and engage more. So in March this year, we invited all the members to discuss the priorities of the wish list, or the help out list as we call it on the wiki, things you can do to help out in your organization. And most star got a round cube upgrade, documentation, information to schools. This is not the Google School project, but more of information sharing, things in general, share information in classrooms on electronic communication and issues that can be with that. Distributed storage, calendar, those are examples of things that members find important and want to have the communication organization choose. So what objections are there? Is forming an organization is that not just another software as a service. No, Fripost is really free. The user freedom is respected, and the control of hardware and software is totally under the control of the members. This is guaranteed by the democratic structure of the organization. And is Fripost the solution? Fripost is not the solution, but it can be part of. So this is also a point where you should laugh. No, of course we realize that Fripost is not the final solution. The problems of today, internet and indeed the whole change that is happening, or the transition, is a structural problem. The best we can hope Fripost to be is a provider of an alternative for the AG, and that way be instrumental for the overall societal turnaround on communication issues. We wrote in 2010 in a structuring document, or in one of the documents that I digged up from my bookshelf or papers or Git repositories or wherever I found it. So citing myself and Stefan, this is about the year of 2010. This has been a year of beginning movement towards reinvention of the decentralized internet. Perhaps now we have reached a point where the continued centralization of the internet has become unbearable. This was in reference to Eben Moglen's speech on the GNU Social and Diaspora initiatives. So we were very positive in this meaning. Okay, Fripost is like building emailing. It's easy stuff compared to the distributed Facebook, because email is an infrastructure that is existing. But the moral from Moglen is contain one thought that we get around that might be even revolutionary, and it has to do about action. Just do it, he said, and we had no reason not to. So today maybe I would be more dubious, because what I see is that people use Facebook and Google more extensively and more hours every day than what they did 5 years ago. But that is also why it's important to keep going and keep working and maintain and sustain the platforms on which we can perform this work and the things that we do. Yes. Okay. So what I did was presenting. I've been presenting some threats from threats from the capitalist and consumist power. It is that has efficiently advanced lately. What I try to argue is that keep your head cold and thinking theoretically and forming theoretical and technical frameworks and abstractions help us cope with anxiety and concerns. What I want to achieve with these talks is to have people reflect on their own communication decisions and on what they do, how they communicate in their everyday life. And of course, Fripost recommend everyone to perform their computer work as free as they can. Ideally, totally free. But we recognize that the free software community has a great challenge in the creation of distributed alternatives. As I said, I will continue. I will continue to build and improve sustainable and democratic communication structures. work for consciousness and education on these matters. And as a final note, of course, structural problems need structural change, but we hope that initiatives such as Fripost, because Fripost is one initiative, can be to some extent instrumental in bringing about the structural change. And I end there and open up for comments and ideas. Thanks. Or jokes.
Yeah. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so one thing that you didn't mention very much in this talk was the democratic aspect of that is an association. Could you elaborate a bit on that for those who are not very familiar with this?
Yes, okay. So non-profit organization and democracy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in Sweden there is a way to form an organization that we call ideell förening, which is it's not purely an economical organization, but it comes together with some fundamental structures of democracy as well. So the board is elected. Let's see. No, I think I should not go into those details. It is the question probably about something else, is it?
No, well, more about the democratic participation aspect of that, if you are like within a...
Yes, okay. So I think that the fundamental, one fundamental issue with using others' services is that you lose your right to have influence, or you lose your ability to have influence on the solution. So the solution that we build in Fripost and the way we build it will be better than whatever any one organization can provide that do what they do for profit. Because we can always serve our purposes and build the solutions for people, and not to be dependent on others. That. So.
Yeah, exactly. And that ties also into the democratic aspect for us of being an association that member or making up the association.
Thanks.
Yeah, you said you won't hand out your data to third parties, so I was wondering if you have a policy what to do with police investigations, or would you just discuss it in the meeting when it comes up?
That would be discussed in the meeting if it comes up. There was a bit of talk about the directive to store information. What is that called in English? Not the long
Retention of data.
Retention of data directive. Non-profits are not covered by that. That is, of course, but as was stated, that you can, the law will always beat technology, wasn't it? And that is perfectly true. But we do not keep logs, we do not keep information, so we will not be able to hand it out.
Because I'm asking because I'm also in a group that runs services, and we actually had a problem. We didn't have a policy, we discussed really long what to do, and we understand ourselves as grassroots democracy, and it was a really difficult discussion, and a lot of people were unhappy with the result. So I guess it's better to discuss it before.
Yes. What was the result, if I may ask?
We complied. Basically because the sys admins whose name was actually on the box didn't want to be liable. That was the brief preference.
Yeah, so also Fripost is a fairly unique association, right? It's no, like I think you mentioned like a while back, like 5 years ago, there was like no similar initiatives basically anywhere in the world, and that is still true, right?
It is surprising to me, still, that Fripost is unique. Because, for various reasons.
Most problems that occur is not actually getting emails, storing in the safe, but it's actually sending email and getting the sent email accepted by centralized services. How do you deal with that problem, getting Microsoft to accept your emails, getting Gmail to accept your emails and so on?
I have not. I have to take that question and pass it forward to those that can answer it properly. Have good sanity on on how you connect to other services is basically my answer to that. So and is that, and I will get back to.
So you said you were ideal förening.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? How do you pay for developers, for example?
We don't. Everything happens on a rotating basis.
So everybody who works on that, they do it on their spare time.
Yes. Is an important question to bring up. So like a larger solution would of course be, with a larger solution we could offer administrators and officials some reimbursement for efforts. But it's also the values that comes with doing something on a rotating basis. It also has a value in itself to do things on a rotating basis.
Well, of course, the issue I was thinking about is the sustainability part. If everybody's doing it on their spare time, then, well, people have other things to do. They have to work, they have to have, time with families and so people could leave anytime. What could happen if all the developers leave at some point?
Yeah, if all the developers leave at one point, of course, that would be trouble for the association. So we hope, for example, Gillem is very much involved in architecture and administration solutions, for example. So we very much hope that Gillem does not decide to leave just without warning and prior notice. But of course, so documentation is important, proper documentation and standard. So other policy things that we have technically is that we use standard practice and software that comes with standard distribution. For example, in this case it's Debian, so what's not in Debian stable is not Fripost will not use, pretty much. And that is one way to minimize administrative overhead. So there's still measures to do.
I can add something there. I think if if the admins decide to leave somehow, then I don't think Fripost will die, but it will probably enter some kind of maintenance mode where no new feature will be added or something until some new, willing person decides to step up. But actually, so I just have said I'm like probably the person at the moment that does most of the techie stuff, and when I don't have time with that, it's very little work. Really. I mean, what needs time is to actually develop new features or I don't know, set up a new server or something, deploy something, or set up a new redundancy solution or something like that. But in in maintenance mode, it's really little. So I don't think. I think Fripost is here to stay.
So we assume that this is the interesting slide in this regard. What developing new things, that is what takes most effort.
So Michael, you had a question?
Yeah, I thought, partially suggestion, because I know that there is in Gothenburg a VPN provider called Mova. I don't know if they're popular, but they have the advantage that I think VPN providers in Sweden, there's a special, not loophole, but an exception to them, that they aren't forced to maintain any logs at all for providers, service providers. And so if you maybe combine a service with that, it could be useful. It's kind of a piecemeal solution, you know, if you put that in front, because they scrub the data, anonymize the connections, and then you could just give to the police anything, and there would be connections from Japan and Mexico. They wouldn't be able to do anything with it. What do you think about that as a partial solution?
Today we do not foresee to have issues with police, for example, because we are not obligated by law to save any information, and therefore we can just remove information and thereby not be able to provide any information. But in the continuation, if law asks, like, demands for storing of information, we have to make a decision at that time anyways. And I don't know if the internet connection, but I appreciate the idea for sure.
It was a remark for this question, because Tor works always Fripost, so you don't need a VPN. If you like, you can be anonymized, just out of the box. That's all.
Well, if there are no more questions, I guess we will close the session. Thank you again, Gustav. Thanks.